I always wanted to share my stories on this site before, but I didn't have the courage to do it previously. Part of the reason is that I believe English is not my first language, and I may interpret my experience differently to what had happened. I have been experiencing weird things and sightings throughout my life. It all started when I was 6 or 7 years old. In this story, I will share my first experience with the paranormal. It may not sound too scary to you, but trust me, it was for me. We were living in a bahay kubo, a house made of bamboo. The side where we sleep is towards the main road. When you sleep, you can clearly see the road from the inside because the wall is just bamboo sticks crossed together, creating a wall with holes. That side is also our living room, and if you're looking at the roadside, to your right is the kitchen, and your back is where our parents sleep. To the left is the main door. We were sleeping on that spot. My little brother, between me and my little sister, our older sister and brother sleeps near our parents. I was the one near the roadside of the bed. I woke up in the middle of the night because of the sound of a woman humming outside. She was, as I thought, standing just outside our house, a few feet away from me. Initially, I was not scared, but rather amazed. Her white dress was floating. It was like there was a wind blowing it so slowly that her dress moved magically. I was looking at her for maybe a few minutes and she decided to move. She started walking and I looked across the road. That's when I realized that she wasn't walking at all. She was floating. It was this moment where I could no longer hear her humming, and I can no longer hear any other sound but my heartbeat. I was so scared and just froze there watching her. A car drove by very fast. I assumed that whoever drove it saw her. The next day, no one believed me. They thought it was a bad dream, but I know it wasn't. After that night, I began to experience things that I couldn't explain. I'll skip some of my experiences, but we'll focus on this floating woman instead. When I was maybe around 14 or 15 years old, I saw her again. This time, we were in a bigger house. The house was in the shape of an L. The small line part is the living room, and the stairs in the bigger line is where our kitchen is. There was a small room and a bathroom. All members of my family, including my 4 siblings, used to sleep together, so they slept in the living room, while me and the other preferred to be alone, so I slept upstairs. There were 2 rooms upstairs. You can only access the second room and the first room, and I was sleeping on the second room. I don't know why they built it that way, but that's how it was built. Going back to our second encounter, I was about to fall asleep. I was still awake and I was just about to lay down when she suddenly appeared at the foot of my bed. I was almost laying down, so my feet were already on its position, but my upper body is still a little vertical to the bed. I froze, scared, and couldn't breathe the moment I saw her. She was crying and trying to tell me something. She started talking, but I couldn't understand her at all. Her voice was cutting in and out, and it seemed like she was asking me, but I couldn't tell. I just told her that I couldn't breathe and that she was killing me by showing herself to me. But I really thought I was going to die there because my heart felt like it was going to freeze, just like my body. I was just able to tell her something between my heavy breaths. Fast forward 8 years. I was already working, and one time during our team eat-out, a colleague of mine told us her scary experience. She said that she saw a woman wearing a white dress standing on the rooftop. She called the house haunted after her experience. That woman passes through the walls of the house, and I don't really remember the entire story, but all I knew that she was scared. I had her describe the house. It turned out that she was describing our house. I gave her my address and she confirmed that it was the house she was referring to. Currently, we no longer stay in that house anymore due to the multiple complaints from the neighbor. My family decided to demolish the house. Thinking of this, I just hope I have the courage to help her. What do you think? What would you do if you were in my position? The story I'm about to share happened 6 months ago. We live in Pasig, Philippines now. The encounter happened in Gapan, Nueva Ecija. We rented a house in Gapan for almost 2 years. it was a 4-story house. If I may add, it was only me, my mom, and my youngest brother who was always at home since my dad was also a seaman during that time, but he's retired now. The house was amazing. I got my own room on the 2nd floor, and my mom and my brother were on the 4th. I have to say, 2 weeks before we moved, for some reason, things began to happen, such as lights in the living room starting to turn on by itself when no one was around. Sometimes, during the night, the television would turn on all by itself. What's weird about it is that it's not even plugged in. Everything that we have in the house is very, very old. The television I was talking about, it was an old television with 9 channels, and it wasn't even ours. One day, I came home from school and my mom was yelling at my brother because he was being lazy. Being the eldest, she just ignored me, and I went on to do my thing. On my way back to my bedroom, I have to walk past our spiral stairs. Underneath the stairs, I saw an old lady coming out from a room. I had no idea that we even had a room downstairs, so I just completely ignored it. I thought maybe it was one of my mom's friends who came to help her out with something. It was a weekend and I got all of my stuff ready. I was looking for my Marshall Mode 3 earbuds, and sometimes my brother just keeps on borrowing it without even asking me. I went to his room, but before reaching his room, I saw the same old lady again. This time she was holding a dustpan and a broom, and she was about to go downstairs. I just nodded and said hello to her, but she didn't even look or acknowledge me. So I followed her to see where she was heading to, and I saw her go inside a room that is underneath our stairs. I shrugged it off and went to my brother's room, and to my surprise, the door was not locked and the room was 101% clean. This was very weird because he never cleans and is very lazy. On top of that, he usually keeps his door locked and doesn't want me in his room. I finally got my earbuds and went down to get some snacks from the fridge. I wondered to myself if we had a room for maids or housekeeping. 3 days before we left, I invited some of my friends to hang out and have a little bit of fun. 2 of my friends arrived early and 4 of them arrived late, and that was around 2:15 a.m. I remember that during this time, things got pretty creepy. I was looking for our bottle opener but could not find it in the usual place that we put it. At this point, I just let it go. It was 4 a.m. in the morning, and all of us were pretty loud. We were in the living room. I was telling my friends to keep it as quiet as they could because our maid's room was right next to us. My friends didn't know that we had a maid, and I also replied that I didn't know either. I just saw her 2 days ago. I thought that maybe my mom hired her to help us since we were moving. We wrapped it up and said our goodbyes. Me being too drunk and tired, I just left everything we used during that party and left it for our maid to do it. The next morning, after our get-together, my mom was shouting and cursing as I left our living room a complete mess. I hurried downstairs, and my brother also followed me. We both got to see the mess that we made from the party, and I gotta say, it was quite a lot from what I remember it. I was telling my mom that I thought the helper would do it, since she lives in this house too. My mom was confused. She was asking me what I was talking about. What maid was I referring to? And I was shocked that she just said that. To be honest with you guys, I never attempted to check the maid's room, but I'm positive that I saw her go into a room underneath our stairs. So I showed my mom to where she is, and to my surprise, there wasn't a room or door under our stairs. At that point, I felt like my feet were about to melt. I cleaned up the mess, and at this point, I could barely move. My mom and my brother were mocking me while I was cleaning. This part here is where I got alarmed. My mom asked us to come with her to get her personal stuff like phones, money, and car key. She stopped me from cleaning and said that we should go live with our grandparents for the time being. I really thought I was the only one that noticed it, but so did my mom. She told me about this one time when she was about to cook food for breakfast and she heard someone was washing the dishes. She thought it was me, but when she got to our kitchen, no one was there. There was also this one time some of our kitchen stuff, like plates, cups, spoons, and forks, went missing. My mom found it somewhere hiding inside the house a couple of days later. She also heard someone crying on the fourth floor during the afternoon. That was after we said goodbye to our friends and we packed all of our stuff. Lastly, on the third floor, she said that she saw shadows from our stockroom, walking left and right and hearing someone take a bath early in the morning. We never knew the history of the house, but we all knew that it was just me, my mom, and my brother in the house. That was it. I was born in a city but spent most of my years growing up in a rural area. I was happy to experience childhood in my first home. Although we lived in a rural area, the houses are not that far from each other since we live in a subdivision. Our house is located in a corner lot, which also seems to be the boundary of our subdivision. At the back of our house is a police training facility where a belete tree is also located across my house. My father had already been informed by a local witch doctor that our house is a passageway for the unseen creatures since the belete tree is planted in line with our house. I was not blessed with the gift to see the unseen, but I am no stranger to creepy experiences that happened in that house. My grandma, when she was alive, saw a white lady almost every night. She smoked her tobacco in the wee hours into the night. She said that the lady meant no harm but would always try to get her attention. My uncle also saw a creature in our house during his stay, but he wouldn't tell us what he saw. My brother and I were also not spared by these unseen creatures. We decided to sleep in our living room so we would not disturb our parents because it was summertime and we wanted to play video games. Our activities were suddenly stopped when something kept running around our house in the middle of the night. At first, we thought it was our dog, but when I checked through the window, our dog was safely sleeping in her kennel house, which is locked. This running went on for about 5 minutes until it stopped. As soon as it stopped, we heard our screen door open. As we noticed our screen door open, we heard scratches on our wooden door, which seemed like someone or something is trying to enter. Gathering up my courage, I checked through our window to see who or what it was that was scratching at our wooden door. But to my dismay, I found nothing. We went to my father since he was having his vacation at that time, and he went to check it out, but he said that he felt someone or something watching him from the tree, but he wasn't able to see it. Apart from what we saw or heard, when people would come to visit our house, they would experience a range of occurrences. Some of these would be strange feelings to apparitions. My family just let it slide since it wasn't that big of a deal. What bothered my family the most was the time when an unseen creature took interest in my mom. My mother is a housewife. She left her job early to take care of me and my siblings full time. When we were at school, she was always home alone since my dad is a seafarer and just comes home 2 to 4 months per year. What she experienced was no joke. She didn't even tell us at first because she was also in denial or wasn't aware of what was happening to her, but this was not held on for too long since her experiences went from tolerable to unbearable. According to her, it started as an eerie feeling whenever she was having her siesta. She always felt like someone or something was watching her from our window. This went on until the unseen became more and more aggressive. After a week of these eerie vibes, that's when she was having her siesta and she started to feel light and dizzy before she dozed off. Her last straw happened at the time when she felt sleepy but was not asleep yet. My mother felt light and dizzy, and so she planned to get up to ask our neighbor what was a remedy to help with her dizziness. When she actually did get up, she said that it felt like her bed fell. It was odd because it felt like her bed was floating and that's why she was feeling light and dizzy. She then consulted our local witch doctor. He told us that an elemental being took a liking to my mother. He explained that the only way for it to be stopped is through offerings. We offered a chicken's egg outside of our house. Her eerie experiences and dizziness stopped, but when my father came home that year, he was then the target of the unseen creatures. He was always staying up late since he planned to take an exam for him to get his rank higher. He always felt like something is watching him from our window. My father usually shrugged it off since whenever he checked the window, there was no one and nothing there. One night, when he went outside to our backyard to pee, he noticed a man standing underneath our Indian mango tree. My father did not move, nor did he apprehend the person, since he was aware that it was not a human or a living being. My father started mumbling a prayer and kept on brushing his eyes so that he could confirm what he saw was real. As he was doing so, the creature didn't vanish for a while. He said that it only started to vanish as soon as he finished his prayer and took steps closer to that being. After that incident, he consulted our local witch doctor again. This time, they suggested we spray a pinch of salt in every part of our house and pray one for our Father, one Hail Mary, and one Glory before we sleep. My brother and I did that ritual every night until the day my parents decided it was time for us to move to an urban area, since my brother and I started to go to school, which is located in a city. The only experience we then heard from the family who bought our house was that when they decided to cut the Indian mango tree that was planted in our backyard, all of them started to get really sick, simultaneously one after another. I really didn't understand it at first because I thought the creatures were just passing through our house and that they live in that balete tree, but we also thought that some of them may have transferred to the Indian mango tree that was planted in our backyard. I am now 29 and now have a family of my own. The story I'm about to share is my experience which took place in our previous apartment way back in 2016. You see, we lived in an apartment somewhere in Cainta City, Philippines. The place was simple. It has a small kitchen, bathroom, bedroom, and a living room, which has enough space for the furniture. But we didn't have much things back then, so we decided to sleep in the living room. We set up our television and mattress. It was cozy. The windows were always open at night, and the cold breeze could fill the whole entire living room. I arranged some baby pillows around my daughter one night. Looking at her while she sleeps was so calming. I caught her smiling and wondered what she was dreaming about. My partner Ray and I have been working in the BPO industry for years. Our internal alarm clock follows our usual shift schedules, so it's been pretty hard for us to fall asleep at night. It's 2 a.m. and we're still wide awake. We were eating snacks while watching a movie that we've seen a dozen of times. Then we talked about the most recent accident that happened on the second floor. A 1-year-old child fell down the stairs. This accident caused the kid to be rushed to the hospital. I told Ray how sorry I felt for both the parents and the baby. I then got up to grab a cigarette, but then realized that it was empty. I had no choice but to buy some from our nearest store at 2 a.m. in the morning. I dressed up in a white shirt and longer shorts. Our apartment was on the 3rd floor, so I still had to go down the wooden stairs. I then went to the store, bought the cigarettes, and headed straight home. Out of habit, I looked up at our unit as I walked past the cars in the parking lot just outside our building. I can see our terrace in our front door. I then looked back to watch my step, and when I almost reached the gate, I looked up again. There was this kid holding the terrace grill, so young and small. I even blinked if I was seeing this right. Her dark black eyes was staring down back at me. I panicked. It was my daughter. She might have gotten out of her unit. I rushed upstairs. My heart was beating so fast that I could almost hear it. When I got there, she was gone, without a trace. I slowly walked towards our unit's front door. I opened it, and there I saw my daughter, still asleep, in the same position that I left her. Did Althea get up? I saw her at the terrace, I asked Ray. He then looked at me with this puzzled look on his face and answered, What? Yeah, I just saw her, that's why I rushed in. The still puzzled expression on his face clearly answers my question. No doubt, I was about to get out to investigate, but when I reached the doorknob, that's when I realized my daughter is 8 months old. She still can't walk. And what's more, she couldn't possibly reach to turn the doorknob. The kid I saw was taller and older than my daughter. My heart was beating so fast. I knew what I saw. It was clear and solid. I can't say if it was pale or white, but she was definitely looking back at me with her dark black eyes. Just pure black. No pupil. I didn't even wonder because my daughter has long eyelashes and it was dark. I was somehow relieved and thought it was better to be thinking about something else than my daughter. And no, I know what you're thinking. The kid that fell down the stairs is most definitely not alive. Months later, it was around 7 p.m. when I was preparing myself for work. I took a quick selfie. The doorway in the terrace could be seen behind me in the photo. As soon as I uploaded it to Facebook as a profile photo, one of my close friends posted a comment. "There's a kid behind you." I looked at the photo again. This time, I almost dropped my phone. The kid in the photo is the same exact child I saw at the terrace. Those same black eyes. You might think this reminds you of a character in a horror movie, but I swear, this is 100% real. Yeah, sure it is.